right, everybody, welcome to the latest installment of the Just Noise podcast. We are really excited to have our guest here today. Logan, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. How are you doing, Brandon?
Oh, I cannot complain, man. So, our guest today, she just does not front any band. She's the leader in the movement, continually redefining and raising the bar of what we consider extreme metal. She's an absolute unit behind the mic and a monster of a lyricist. You may know her as the vocalist of technical death metal band Entheos. Please welcome our pride and joy of the 515, Chaney Crabb. What's going on, Chaney?
That was quite the introduction. Thanks for that. I
I've
was
been
like,
watching Hot Ones all week. Let's go.
but yeah, I'm doing great. I'm stoked to do a podcast about Des Moines and Iowa. I'm really stoked that you guys asked to have me on because I am Iowan through and through, and it's very rare that I get to like do an interview where I'm like, or a podcast or whatever, and just like talking about that. And Des Moines is such a huge part of my life, and like the scene of Des Moines and Iowa in general is such a huge part of my life that it's cool to get to talk to people from Iowa and talk about Iowa.
We are beyond stoked to have you. And you even have Iowa on your right arm. You got the Iowa hardcore tattoo, don't you? That's right.
It's not hardcore. It's actually a corn cross skull. To be honest, I've considered covering it up so many times, and I'm just like, I just can't do that because I've moved away. You know, if I still lived there, I think it would be okay. But I've moved away from Iowa at this point, and
But it's
I
like
always
part of
wanna
where
do
you're
that.
from.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you.
no, yeah, it's like I want to rep.
Yeah.
It is where I'm from. It's so much a part of me that I haven't been able to bring myself to cover it up. But
We'd rather have you than Slipknot. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
well, we barely have Slipknot anymore, right?
That's true.
I mean, it's mostly not Iowa anymore, but yeah.
very cool.
I guess going forward, we wanted to maybe like get where your background, like how you got started in like Des Moines and the music scene, and like where you kind of got your musical, like your background, your influence. I guess I'm sure you've covered it before, but we were just kind of curious, like for the Des Moines specific stuff.
Yeah, so I started going to like local shows in Des Moines when I was in, so I think seventh grade, and the first band that I ever saw was this band called Pig Walk. It's hella like early 2000s, stuff from Des Moines, and my friend and I like snuck out of her house when I was staying the night at her house, and she's like, "Let's go see this band, Pig Walk." So we saw them at what's now Lefties, but it used to be called Harry Mary's. So that was the very first venue in Des Moines that I ever went to, and then from there I started going to a ton of shows. Within the following year, that were at the old House of Bricks that was across from Merle Hay Mall. So my mom would like I would figure out every single local show that was coming through, or every single just metal band in general that was coming through, and they were all ages shows. So I would have my mom drop me off on the weekends to check out a show, and there were so many bands back then. I'm trying to think. There was like ones that I would see all the time were like a well-dressed man who Danny Carmen was who's the vocalist of that band. Screaming Mechanical Brain was a band from Minneapolis that would come down here all the time. There was like, God, they were this band, I can't remember the name of them, but they like wore, I want to say Face Cage. So Face
yeah.
Cage
Okay.
and Index Case and like all of these old school like new metal aligned Iowa bands. So like I got way into going to shows, and because of that it was coinciding with my want to be a vocalist. I was seeing all these sick metal bands and I wanted to do that. So I became a vocalist. My first band was with a guy named Steven Banks, who
Shout out
has,
Steven. Let's go. The
yeah,
lore keeps
yeah,
getting deeper. Okay, sorry.
yeah, dude. So no, isn't that fucking crazy? So the first person I ever like actually played music with was Shane Kello, and he's a drummer. We just played with his band last year. Uh, So Shane, I would go over to his house after school. We would just jam. His parents would call me Cookie Monster. And, they were just like, they were very fascinated by the whole thing. So, and then I was in like a real band with Stephen Banks and Ryan Hobson and John O'Rourke. It's kind of like I knew Ben Monroe. People probably know Ben from The Curse of Hale. So his older brother, Paul, hung out like in this group of people. So I've known Ben since he was like, I swear to God, 7 or 8 years old. Uh, so yeah, that's like where it all started for me in Des Moines. And that band never actually played shows, but that was kind of like
What was the name of that band?
where we never had a name. We never had a name, but we just jammed. So that's like where it all began. The first actual band that I was in Iowa was called, well, dude, I was just in bands with people throughout the years, like Shane Mills, who was just in this band called
Widow 7?
yes, Widow 7.
Yeah.
So Shane and I jammed in high school. And then I finally joined Prevail in the Hill of Gunfire. That was kind of like my first real band that I was in. And I joined that band when I was, I think, 17 years old.
That's
So,
insane that you went to high school with Shane, let alone jammed with him. He's one of my favorite musicians of all time. He's a phenomenal drummer. That's crazy.
yeah,
So,
he's amazing. Are you talking about Shane Mills or
yeah,
Shane Phillips?
Shane Mills. I'm sorry. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so Shane and I did go to high school together, and he's incredible. We would jam in his attic, and like it was funny because years later when I moved to LA, when Naveen, my now husband, and I started dating, in like 2011, I want to say, Shane went to Musicians Institute in LA. So we hung out a few times in LA, and it was really cool to have that. But yeah, Shane's incredible, and I'm glad that he is still, kind of playing drums and stuff.
No, I love the dude. He's so good. I want to see him doing more stuff. So,
Me too, man.
yeah. So moving into Prevail the Herald of Gunfire, there were only two videos I could find on that scour. I mean, there was reverberation stuff that's no longer there
I wish we
anymore.
were done.
It was so good. What was the name of the two brothers that were in that band with you that went on to be was Stand United, right?
No, so it's Justin and Jason Hashman, and the name of the band that they kept Prevail going for a while after I quit, and actually Ben Monroe did join Prevail after I quit the band.
Okay.
Uh, but the name of their next band I think was Taking Strides. It was
Oh,
kind
okay.
of a melodic
That's right.
hard. But dude, those two, Justin and Jason. Justin plays guitar and Jason plays drums. Those are two of the most talented musicians I've ever played with in my entire life. Like, they wrote such unique music and original music, and I had never really uh, jammed with anyone like that before. They were just so tight, and they cared about like us playing well. They were the
Mhm.
first people to really introduce me to like being a sick musician on stage, and not just going and jamming with your friends and fucking
Mhm.
off and getting
Right.
drunk or whatever. Like those two really kind of put me, and they were older than me. I was 18 and they were like 27 at the time. And they were the first people that I ever recorded with. Like I remember I lied to my mom and told her that I was like just hanging out in town in Des Moines, and we actually drove to Cedar Falls, which is like 2 hours away from Des Moines, and
Mhm.
tracked our first album with a guy named Chris Brown, who was like producing stuff out of a barn on his parents' farm. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's looking back, it was so wild. And Adam Zemanek was in that band as well. He's gone on to do some other stuff. But yeah, those two are like, I have them to thank for a lot of my like beginning years of really taking music seriously and really pushing me to be like the musician that they believed I could be. Because even back then, like I feel like vocalists didn't really like it wasn't as big of a deal to be super sick and super precise and like really good live back then.
Hmm.
Right.
That's become more of a thing over the years, but those two really just like instilled that in me. And yeah, I mean, that was my musical boot camp for sure.
Well, it was really solid from what I could hear, and I really enjoyed the drumming. He's phenomenal in that, even in that early iteration. And that's pretty crazy to me to think that that was your first quote unquote official project, and it just kept getting better from there. So,
Thank you. Yeah, I think honestly, also Jason's playing, he's the drummer, his playing just like set me up to really, really care about drummers
mhm.
in my life because he was such a, I didn't know anything back then about like this, all of these drummers have different styles and the player, it really matters, the player and like how the drums sound. And Jason really introduced me to all of that stuff because he was so goddamn good and so unique, and he wasn't really trying to drum like other people. So he was like really really influential to me, even still to this day, in what I look for in a metal drummer and the type of drumming that I've fallen in love with over the years.
You can be the best drummer in the world, but if you're not playing for the band, then it doesn't matter. Because if
Uh-huh.
you're not making the
Yeah.
time for everybody else in the project to shine, or it all come together, and
Hmm.
that's all I gotta say is like he did a really, I mean, yeah, in that instance, he did a really good job of what I could hear of just making everybody shine. And that
Yeah.
was an old school video on somebody's phone from 16 years ago, and that's just so cool for me to find that kind of stuff where it's like somebody took the time to upload that on YouTube, and it's like maybe it got 2 likes, and me 16 years later being a total nerd, it's like, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for. So,
That's
anyway,
wild. I'm gonna have to go look up that those videos you're talking about. But yeah,
I'll send
those two,
I'll send them all to you.
yeah,
So,
please do. Those two were also, they're twins. Justin and Jason were so goddamn locked in, It's so they were so good at writing music together and leaving space with each other or for each other because of that. They were like my first experience with the sibling, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
synergy, that unspoken bond. So, yeah.
Yeah.
those two working together, yeah.
Ben straight up said it. Like they were like King Midas. Everything that they touched was just gold from that point on. And
It was no, it was true, and you know, I can't remember if they kicked me out of the band. I think I might have left for From Citizen to Soldier. I can't really remember. I wasn't the greatest, most dependable band member back then in my life.
mhm.
So I can't remember exactly what happened, but what I do remember is being super jealous of all the stuff they put out after me in Prevail, and just like kind of bummed that I wasn't a part of it because yeah, their stuff was so good.
Yeah, I wish I could hear more. Straight up, yeah, we couldn't find much of that. I'll let
That's
Logan
Yeah.
interesting.
kind of take
There's
over
a
here in a
whole
second, but I was going to say from Citizens to Soldier, the two tracks that we could find with you on those are, oh man, they are so good. They're juicy.
Yeah,
So
they're good. They're good. I There actually is a full length album from Prevail in the Hail of Gunfire that I should upload to the internet just for fun.
That would
For
be
fun
awesome.
things.
we'd
So
love that.
yeah,
That would be cool. Yeah, I guess moving to from citizen to soldier, I thought it was cool something so there I don't know, it's been a few years ago, maybe whatever. There's a guy that presses CDs for a company called Been There Seen That, and I
hmm,
believe I had no idea that Danny Shea was in the band at that, or had been in the band, and
yeah,
I had tagged this Ryan guy that owns that label, and I believe tagged you in this as well, like saying, hey, we should get the From Citizen Soldier to press,
Mhm.
and then he sent me a thing, and so like I had no idea that you'd only were in that band for like 9 months. And so
yeah.
I started going to shows at like that time, and I happened to catch you guys play twice when you were in that band. So I thought that was kind of cool that like I got to see you perform in that band twice, so I thought that was pretty neat.
That's
Jealous.
Just
wild.
like a
Which
crazy fun fact.
Do you remember which shows you're at?
One of them was with Despised Icon and I want to say Winds of Plague.
You're
Uh,
absolutely right. I will never forget that show ever in my life.
uh, yeah,
Yeah,
it was cool. That was, I believe, the first time I ever got to see Despised Icon, and they were like the band that I loved at that time. So yeah, and
same.
that was cool. Yeah, just seeing. I'd never experienced live music ever, other than like seeing Breaking Benjamin at Valor Ballroom one time. So like, it was just cool to see that, and it was just, yeah, it was wild. And then I think the other one was like, I want to say a Born of Osiris show, maybe.
Yep, I'm absolutely sure it was. Yeah,
Okay, I
maybe
felt like
maybe with the Oceano.
yes, yes, it would
Yeah,
have had to have been.
yeah. So the Despised Icon show, I first of all will remember it forever because that was also the only time I've seen Despised Icon, and for me, that's like my metal band of that era. Like that's a band that I still
Yeah,
go back. Like the Ills of Modern Man was such an influential
yes,
record for me, and yeah. So the other reason that I will always remember that show is because I had to sell tickets for that show. Two days later, this Veil of Maya was coming through with Animals as leaders. So I think that the show you're talking about was maybe on February 12th or February 14th. And the Animals show was exactly 2 days later. So Jordan Peterson, who, you know, he was in Too Pure to Die,
hmm
Crusader, the band that he's touring with again right now. He used to work at First Fleet. He also works at Method Inc. He like his sister runs Method Inc. I'm pretty sure it's his sister and his brother-in-law. But anyways, so Jordan was the promoter, the main promoter back then. And he was like, I wanted to play the Veil of Maya and Animals as Leaders show so fucking bad. It was also with Periphery and Circle of Contempt. And it was like that was when the Sumerian core was like starting to take off, and those were all of my
right.
favorite fucking bands. Like I was so stoked to see that show. And Jordan was like, "All right, if you get the tickets sold for the Despised Icon show, I'll let you play the Animals show as well." And so we got to play the Animals show, and not only did I see all of those bands, but it's the night that I met Naveen. So from there, my life just completely, absolutely changed. And so, yeah, it's crazy that those two shows
That's
were
cool.
right back to back because, yeah, they were also two of the most monumental shows of my entire life. I mean, I saw Despised Icon for the first time, and of course, Winds of Plague, who I was also into. And then, yeah, 2 days later, there were only maybe I want to say 70 people at a Veil of Maya headlining uh, Circle of
Periphery.
Contempt. I think Circle of Contempt was direct support or Periphery, but Circle of Contempt isn't even a band anymore. And then I think Animals, it was either Animals or Periphery was dead first, with 70 people in the fucking venue, which now, you know,
That's
all of those
wild to think
bands,
about.
yeah, it was crazy, but
Was
yeah,
Naveen
that's
with
why.
Animals at that time when you met him?
Yeah, that's the night that I met him when he was playing for Animals, and also Dustin Miller, who
That
many
was
people,
my next question. Was he lurking in
yeah.
the shadows?
Well, actually, Dustin was doing, I think he was doing sound for Animals on that tour, or he was doing lights. I can't remember what his job was, but Dustin was one of my best friends then, and so he had introduced me to like Flesh Rot and stuff. He was why I was such a huge fan of Flesh Rot because he worked on that record, which if you know, people listening don't know, Flesh Rot is my now husband's solo project with Johnny Davy from Job for a Cowboy. So
I hear the
yeah,
roots. I hear the roots very strong listening to Entheos. I mean, you guys continue to evolve all the time,
yeah,
but listening to Flesh Rot, I hear it, and it's so cool.
absolutely. I mean that is Naveen, you know, so
Hmm.
he's also the main songwriter for Entheos, so it's like totally natural that that would show up in our stuff. So, but yeah, I hear it, and also Flesh Rot's first full length is like one of my favorite metal records of all time. So even before I met Naveen, it was totally uh, not nothing to do with my relationship with him. But yeah, so Dustin was there that night, and Dustin actually had a party after that show, and at the party is where Naveen and I met at the show, but at the party it was kind of like, oh shit, I think we kind of are into each other, you know. So it was just that's a crazy week.
Happy for you guys that you're
That's
still going strong. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, so I was only in from Citizen to Soldier for 9 months, but then it seemed like a long ass time.
yeah, like I don't know. I thought it was wild till like when he was telling me that, and I was just like, oh, that's pretty crazy and stuff. But like, I don't know. It's just looking back when Brandon and I were getting ready for this. I was looking back to those notes, and I remembered that message, and so I went and looked at it and read it again. And I'm like, that was just crazy to think about.
Yeah, dude.
Because like I knew, I grew up in. Do you remember Jeff Feeker from A Mass to Grave?
Oh, hell yeah, I remember
Okay.
that.
So I grew up in the same town as him, so and he was a few years older than I was, so like I kind of knew him, kind of didn't, but so that's how I lost my train of thought. I got distracted. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that's how you knew what the fuck were we just talking about? No, that's how you
Yeah.
knew Danny? Is that how you knew Danny and from Citizen to Soldier?
That yeah, like so he had introduced me to like different people, and so like and then I don't know. I lost my train of thought. I feel like an idiot. I'm sorry.
I got it. You got almost
Yeah.
there. But dude, I remember. I mean, so yeah, Danny and I have known each other for a really long time, and when I got into From Citizen to Soldier, when I became a fan of them, like Prevail. I want to say it was Prevail, or it was this band I was in called By These Hands, and I was in that band with like Timer, who was in Kill Pact, and Zach Reed, and then Dennis Reese, who was also in From Citizen to Soldier with me later. I can't really remember the exact timeline on those bands, but we play. Long story short, whatever band I'm talking about that I was in, we played shows with From Citizen to Soldier when Danny was the vocalist, but there was Danny was the vocalist with another guy whose name was Luke Vaughn.
And he's on that first release, the 2006 one.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know what happened. Like Danny and Luke, I guess, decided to quit, or Luke quit first, something like that. And then Chris Brophy, who played guitar in the band, called me. I remember it like it was yesterday. He called me while I was at work, and I worked at a daycare on the east side of Des Moines at that time. And I got the call. I kind of knew they were looking for a vocalist, and to me, I was such a huge fan of like Cedar Falls, Waterloo area metal. There was Infandust, there was With Guns Blazing, you know, Mason City. There was Orson Welles, who I was obsessed with, and From Citizen to Soldier, who were my favorite band out of the bunch. So when I got that call to be in the band, for me it was like Metallica had just called me. You know, it was
Right.
that was like yeah. I was like, I'm in one of the biggest bands in Iowa, baby. Let's go.
Right. That's
So,
awesome.
so yeah, it was like just amazing for me to be in that band because I admired those musicians so much. You know, Joe Bartriff, who was the drummer, who to me is one of the best drummers that like Iowa's ever seen. Who's so goddamn, just so locked in, and yeah, so being in that band was like a dream come true for me.
It was really cool looking back on all this because I know it's random, but like you said Chris Brophy. I know he's a tattoo artist, and he's probably tattooed you a couple times. Looking back on your history, you can't quite see it all here in the background, but he did the Emblem Faction's original logo that we have that is on our scrims, our 8 ball logo, and everything like that. And I never knew who he was. Our drummer, original drummer Wade, suggested him to us, and that's just so cool to like look back on. It's like that dude made our fucking logo. That's on almost all of our albums, and I didn't know that you were in a band with him. So
yeah, Wade, you're talking about the Wade that I know, right?
Yep, Wade Neffenegger.
Hey, we also jammed together. That's like when we were in high school. That's someone else that I've jammed with everyone.
It's crazy. I know you. Just another little snippet in there. You tried out for the Curse of Hail. How cool would that have been? Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. See, that's another thing. So, yeah, From Citizen to Soldier, there was that, and like, you know, we would play shows with all of the bands like Upon Death's Arrival, and it was kind of after the era of bands that are still like my favorite Iowa bands, like Reality's Flaw and Index Case and all those type of
Mm-hmm.
bands. Amass the Grave had
It's
come
the grave.
around because Kill Pact broke up. So John Tolk was in the band before Jeff Beaker.
And he was the original vocalist of Amass the Grave, right?
Yeah, and
Mhm.
John was in Kill Pact, and John was like one of my fucking just absolute heroes then. Like, to me, John was, because I was way into like Whitechapel
Mhm.
and it was like the first era of deathcore. What the deathcore as I know it, and John's vocals were like that, and I just thought he was. I still think he's like one of the sickest vocalists that we had in that era. So, those were all my homies, and we were playing shows together, and being into From Citizen to Soldier was super sick. We got to open for a bunch of bands. I met the love of my life when I was in that band, and like it changed my life in a lot of ways because I started, in Prevail we played to kind of smaller crowds, and we
Mhm.
never really got on like the bigger shows that were coming through. We got on maybe one or two with the Devil Wears Prada, and but mostly we were playing like the basement of the church in Newton and local shows, But with From Citizen to Soldier, we like we were getting a fan base, and like our shows were hype, and when we opened a show it was fucking hype. And we got to play like bigger shows like the Despised Icon show, and I think we played with the Ghost Inside, and
You
maybe.
guys went on tour with Reaping for their first tour, right?
Yeah, we did. That was the first tour that I ever did.
That's
It
so
was with
cool.
Reaping Asmodea, who I still
Mhm.
see Dan and Alex all the time. Uh, but yeah, so that was the first tour I ever did, and all that shit happened in From Citizen to Soldier, but eventually it was just time to call it quits. It was kind of becoming a chore. So we called it quits, and then, yeah, right before I moved to California, like at the end of, it was like at the end of 2010, early 2011, I was like gearing up to join the Curse of Hail. Basically, I
Mhm.
had jammed with them, but when I moved, it just
Complicated things
wasn't
for you.
working anymore. But those guys were insane back then.
Still
So
to
tight,
this day. Yep.
crazy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's still nuts.
Yeah, and it's cool because now they've opened a few of the shows that we've done in Des Moines, and I think we're playing in Des Moines at the end of the year, and I think they might be opening that show as well. But playing with them is such full circle because they were the last band I was going to join, and like I said, I've known Ben since he was a very
7 years old.
small child.
Hmm.
Yeah, so even when Ben started playing instruments, I was kind of like, I don't know, Ben in a band? That's like, but from the beginning, he was so goddamn sick at bass and everything. Like, he's
He's
just,
just a multi instrumentalist. He's so good at fucking everything.
no,
Ben,
he's
God,
he's incredible. Yeah, and now he's like a weightlifter as well,
mhm.
bodybuilder to add to the repertoire.
He's jacked. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know, insanely jacked. But yeah, so it's cool to get to play with them as much as we have.
They definitely deserve it. They're still one of my favorite bands to this day, ever since I've heard them. So
Yeah, they're one of the best bands to come out of Iowa. Definitely one of the, if not the best in the current era of bands that exist, and they're definitely up there.
they still keep pushing themselves every release, every song. So,
Yeah.
yeah, moving forward a little bit. So from Citizen Soldier to System. So that was about a year and a half, 2 year jump there. How did Systems become to be a band? Where did you meet all those guys? Was that when you were in California?
Actually, no. So, systems, the way. Okay, so like I said, my husband was in Animals as Leaders, so I left Iowa at the beginning of 2011 and moved to California. And I didn't have a job in California, and we were all living in a house that Animals as Leaders was paying for. So we were kind of like chilling the fuck out. We were all broke as hell because they only made enough money to like cover our rent. And we were just kind of partying and having the time of our lives. So when they got a tour, it was like, I did merch on their first headliner. And then there was a tour later that year that was with Between the Buried and Me and Tesseract. And my job, I hated doing merch. I am not good at doing merch. I will not do merch now. I did for many years in Entheos, but I fucking hate doing merch. So
Especially when it's not your band. It's just like, hey, come buy our shit. It's not fun.
especially when you get on tour and you realize, oh, the merch person doesn't get to hang out with anyone on tour at all. You have to stand behind a table all day. And all that I wanted to do at that time was hang out with my boyfriend and not fucking be at a table,
Right.
selling stuff. But so on the Between the Buried and Me Tesseract Animals as Leaders tour, which was Naveen's last tour, I was on the road with them booking lessons for Tosin and Naveen. And it was mostly Tosin because, it was right when Tosin was
Blowing up.
blowing the fuck up. The guys in Systems, Tanner, the drummer Danny booked a lesson through me for Tanner, the guitar player, for Tosin. And that's how I met them. And Danny just kind of like kept talking to me. He hit me up on Messenger after that show. I met them in Oklahoma City. And so he hit me up in Messenger after that show. And, we became kind of internet friends. And he showed me his band. And his band was really sick. And they were called Systems. And I was like, they were kind of like in between vocalists, but about to get this new guy in the band. And I was like, dude, do not get that guy in your band. Let me be the vocalist. I'm begging you. Like, let's have Naveen produce. He didn't really produce it, but track a record.
Some guitar tracking.
Yeah. So that's how I joined Systems. And that release that we did, Terra Somnium, they flew to Los Angeles. It was after Naveen had quit Animals as Leaders, so we moved out of the Animals house and we were living with Michael Keane from the Faceless and Raynon Bozio, who's a super sick drummer, and those guys stayed at that house. I think Keane was on like Summer Slaughter, so he was gone. And we had tracked the EP with Naveen, and I went out to tour with them later that year, and the music was so hard to play, first of all, and none of them could play it.
Re-listened to that EP today, and it's just absolutely insane.
Dude, it's
so good.
Yeah, it's insane.
Couldn't imagine.
I was looking into it, and yeah, there were a couple things I wanted to touch on with that because it's a really cool time. Yeah, you said before, like they were a band before that. I could not find any of the songs available. They had an album or an EP before you were in the band with them, and I could not find any of it. It's all gone. But yeah, the drummer that you guys got was his name Riley that went on tour with you guys.
Riley is the guy who went on tour with us, yes, but Riley only was going to play live with us. The actual drummer's name was Danny Barnett, and Danny is who wrote everything, and he wrote a lot of the guitar as well.
That's even crazier. Yeah, no, it was really cool. One thing that for me again that was super cool personally was so one of the guitar players in that project was Mark Willey, right? That was his name.
Yes. Yep. Well, yeah, Mark became a guitar player kind of later on, but he was going to go on tour with us, yeah.
He taught Colin Lee, who's me and Logan's good homie. He played bass. He helped do drums in Drowning Life. He played drums in my band, The Emblem Faction. He was taught partially by Mark Willey. He was his music teacher. So that was just like, that's so cool, that connection.
Yep. That's one.
Looking back on it today, just for some final research, I found a post in 2013 where you guys were looking for a live drummer, and Colin commented on it, and he's like, I'm not ready, but I wish I was. And it was like, oh, that's so cool.
Well, it turns out no one was ready. Riley was actually who we got on live drums. He was the most ready. I think he was he was kind of the most pro out of everyone, along with Mark Willie, who is definitely pro. You know, Mark, I know him from back in the day, of course, and he like had gone on tour doing merch for Cattle Decapitation, and like so he went to Berkeley for a while. I think that's the school he went to. I think he went to, okay, I thought so. But Mark is like a very businessman. Like right now I think he just graduated or he's studying to be a lawyer. Like he wanted to be a manager. You know, he tried to manage me like 20 times back in the day, but I was like, you know, but but so he was very prepared when we were there, and Riley was very prepared, and I was pretty prepared. But the guitar player was the other guitar player was not prepared, and I think everyone kind of underestimated the material and thought that they were going to be able to just fuck it off and learn it in 2 days. But when it became super obvious, because dude, that was like at the when guitar like playing in Guitar Pro and shit and programming drums, that was around the years of the birth of doing this all the time. So that's what we did. The drums were mostly programmed and the guitars were like hyper fucking edited.
They sound
So
amazing still, though. That's all I gotta say. It fit the time. Like it was good.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, but no one could. I don't even
Pull that off live.
think that. I mean, dude, I play with like now. I play with like some of the sickest musicians in the world. I don't think they could play systems. You know, like it's very fucking hard. So it makes sense why no one was prepared. But we just like decided to go home. Riley and I drove back to LA from Oklahoma City overnight and went home. And then I was like, fuck music. I'm going to go to college. So I went to college for a year after that.
Well, we're glad that you came back. So.
Yeah.
I am too. I am too.
Cool. Well, let's move forward a little bit more. So yeah, Entheos, the birth of Entheos, 2015.
Yeah.
So, what started this for you? Was it just you and originally supposed to be Naveen? Because I mean, I got some more questions, but I want you to just tell me some things first.
For sure. So in 2015, like I said, I was in college and I was studying like philosophy and psychology. And I always knew like that I kind of was out of metal for a while. I wanted to like turn away from it just so that cause I was upset that I wasn't like in a band that was doing anything or I was just upset with it. So I like stopped paying attention to it. And, but in 2015, I think it was like September, I heard that Brandon, the vocalist of Veil of Maya, had quit the band. And when, like, I knew, like I said, like I was talking about earlier, Sumerian, the early Sumerian bands, that was my shit. I wanted to be in a band exactly like those bands when I was a kid. And I knew that if Brandon ever quit Veil, or if Ron ever quit Born of Osiris, which is hella funny saying this because Ron is like my, I've toured with these bands now, and they're my friends, and but I knew that if they ever quit, that my voice matched those bands, and that I wanted to like give it an honest try to try out for those bands. So Naveen just so happened to have Veil of Maya's stems, and if anyone doesn't know what stems are like all of the instruments from a record separated out. So Sumerian asked Naveen to do a remix of Unbreakable by Veil of Maya. Naveen had the stems, so he could just pop it into a session really quick and take the vocals out so that I could just do vocals over it. And we asked Mark if it was okay to do, because like vocal playthroughs weren't a thing then. Now you see that shit every single day the minute you get on Instagram. But back then it wasn't a thing. So we were like, hey Mark, is it okay if Chaney does vocals for this? So I immediately did vocals. I learned Unbreakable. Like I said, I hadn't been listening to it. And I learned Unbreakable in like an hour. and
That's awesome.
went home and shot a video. So I ended up like trying out for Veil of Maya. That video went viral, and
Hmm.
I tried out for the band. I didn't get in the band, but because of that, Naveen and I were really inspired. Like he was like, "Let's make a metal project," and I didn't really want to. But he was on tour. He had a solo project in that time
He
called
was doing the
Naveen
Devine
K.
K. Hmm.
Exactly. So he went to Europe and he was on tour with Tesseract and Animals as Leaders. And when he was in Europe, my video was going viral, and he was like, all these people that I know are hitting me up like, oh my God, Chaney, and coming up to him at the merch table, like freaking out about my video. So he was like, why don't we just start a band together? And Frank Costa, who was the guitar player of Animosity, was trying to record his solo project with Naveen at the time, and Naveen was like, "Fuck your solo project, let's just start a band."
Do this.
And Evan had just quit the Faceless, Evan Brewer, and so like I was talking about earlier, my first like national tour was Animals as Leaders' first headlining tour in 2011, which Evan Brewer has a solo project called Evan Brewer.
Through Samaria.
Um,
Yep. Shout
yeah,
out Evan. Yep.
yeah. Beyond that, Evan was in the Faceless, and Evan and Naveen have been very close friends since like the early 2000s because they were in Animosity together. So I knew Evan the whole time, you know, like I'd been to Evan's house in Tennessee. We were friends, but Naveen was like, "All right, I have an idea for a bass player. I'm gonna ask Evan." And to me, like Evan, I'm such a huge fan of Evan's
Everything.
everything he's done.
Everything.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
such a huge fan of all three of these guys who I'm about to somehow like join a band with. And so yeah, that's how Entheos started. It was very weird, and we didn't really intend on doing everything we've done as a band. Like we just wanted to write an EP, write a little bit of music, and like get the metal out of our systems, you know.
You hit on so many of the things that I just wanted to talk about right there from the get go. I wanted to say how cool it was that, yeah, how was it being in a band with Evan Brewer? Um, and then, so Frank was on the first EP with you guys, or at least the first couple singles. I did see he's got some credits on the following release after that, Infant Nothing. What caused Frank to eject from the project? And then what brought Malcolm into the project after that briefly as well? Because that's one of those things I thought was really interesting. So,
Yeah, so Frank, I don't want to spill Frank's tea, but it just wasn't working out. Put it there. I don't think Frank really like he's literally one of the most incredible musicians that I know. He's written some of the best riffs ever. He and Naveen, even though Naveen is the drummer of our band, those two operate as a guitar team. Like they write, Naveen writes a lot of guitar. He has written a lot of the guitar since the beginning with Entheos. Now he writes all of it except for stuff we've had a few people guest on what we're doing right this moment. Um, so it was easy for us to kind of like transition out of Frank. And Malcolm came into the picture. I don't know if I explained that correctly. Malcolm came into the picture because Malcolm is from Nashville and Evan Brewer is from Nashville as well. Evan was like, I know we needed a guitar player like in 2 weeks because Frank quit and we had a tour with the Black Dahlia murder and we needed a guitar player like immediately.
capable and somebody who could fill in right away. Yeah.
Exactly. Who could play the material, which, you know, you pigeonhole yourself when you play anything that's remotely complicated at all, you know?
Hmm. Exactly.
So Evan just so happened to run into Malcolm at a show, and Evan suggested bringing Malcolm into the band. And so Malcolm did the Black Dahlia tour with us and a tour with the Contortionist. And Malcolm also wrote like a couple of solos on the Infinite Nothing. Frank wrote some of the riffs, Naveen wrote most of the album and played most of the solos. So yeah, that was Wow, that's weird going back through it all. But yeah, it was, I remember just being like, when we decided that Frank wasn't going to play with us anymore, just being like, what the fuck are we going to do? You know, because we, like I said, we only started the band to write an EP. It just so happened that, like,
You had a
the,
super group all of a sudden, and everybody wanted to hear it. That's yeah.
yeah, and that the music and the metal industry, like, decided to take us seriously from the jump, which was really weird because we, like, you know, we got management. The same person who's our manager still to this day, we got within maybe like 2 months of forming. And we were signed to a record label within
Part of it.
2 months of
Yeah.
forming. Yeah. And it's weird because we've kind of like grown up as a band in front of people. Like, I feel like a lot of bands, especially now, come out where they're already they know how they're going to market themselves. They know exactly what they're going to play. Everything's like picture perfect, especially when you have, you know, musicians of the caliber of the ones I was playing with. You know, those bands would come out kind of marketed now, but we didn't know what
Yeah.
the fuck we were doing. So we didn't think about marketing or any of that shit until a few years into the band, really. And yeah, so we've like just because of that, we've kind of grown up in front of as a band in front of people. So it's an interesting way to be a band, I think. But yeah, so Malcolm joined the band for a couple of months, and then that didn't work out really, and
Because in theory took off big time after that. I mean, I don't know if they were really doing that much. And they've been around for a long time, but
they
the
have.
first iteration of Entheos in my mind that I had ever heard was the video you guys did with Malcolm, and I didn't even know that you guys had Frank at that time until I further explored things down the road. But that's that's a cool piece of lore. Very cool.
Yeah. So after Malcolm, we did the Contortionist tour with Malcolm, and we all kind of decided that it wasn't really working out. And then we got Travis Levere, who was originally in Scale the Summit. So we went from Malcolm, who like plays tech death, to Travis, who played progressive kind of rock instrumental. So
That's
it was
change.
yeah, a change, but I think that in the grand scheme of Entheos, Travis's sound has been more defining in how we sound as a band now. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
How long is he still with you guys, or when did he start and when did he stop?
No, so Travis started playing with us in, I think it was 2017, and he played with us until 2019. Now he plays with intervals. You know,
That's
going from
cool.
Scale to Summit to intervals makes much more sense, I think. But
Yeah.
so after 2020, Naveen and I decided to, you know, Evan decided to stop touring in like 20, I want to say the end of 2018, the end of 2017, because he has a daughter, and she was born the, fuck it, maybe edit out his name, but so then he decided to stop touring, but because of our relationship with Evan and because of the way that his bass shapes our sound, and like now we live 2 miles away from him, you know, we moved from California to Nashville. So he plays on all of our stuff. He's writing with us right now, and he's always been kind of like a peripheral member of the band. Um, but he's kind of like lurking in the shadows as a member of the band. Naveen and I in 2020 just decided to start presenting the band as we are the two of us. We are the band. So since 2020, the people we've had a couple. We had two guitar players before, the two who are playing with us now, and right now, the guys who are playing with us are Michael Stansel, who is in Allegiant, and Scott Carstairs, who is in Fallujah.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
awesome.
sweet.
Yeah, so so that's who we've toured with this year. And last year we did a tour where Michael Stansel was on guitar, but Andrew Vioretta, who's in,
Oh, yeah, he was the guy
yes,
that was in Interloper and
yeah, he's in Interloper. He's
mhm.
like, that is his band with Miles Baker. And
That's cool.
so Andrew played with us
And
last year.
Vampire Squid. Vampire Squid, shout out.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Andrew's fucking amazing. And so now, yeah, Scott and Michael play live with us.
Very cool. So yeah, just to brief recap: Primal 2015, Infinite Nothing 2016 with Artery, Dark
Yep.
Future 2017, Spine Farm. Ugh. Up until that point, and even I think currently, are you guys still doing your drum production and minor tracking with Zach Oren? Because that was really cool to see that he's been with you guys since the beginning.
Actually, no. So the last thing he did with us is he tracked the drums on Time Will Take Us All.
Okay.
And that came out what year? Fuck, 2020.
2023 Metal Blade. Oh
Right.
yeah, big
Was-
moves.
So no, that was the last thing Zach did for us. Mark Lewis mixed Time Will Take Us All, and then we moved to Nashville, and we lived I want to say 3 blocks away from Mark Lewis, and he's one of our best friends. So he produced an end to everything, and he mixed it, and he tracked everything, and he's producing and tracking and mixing everything that we're working on right now. So he's kind of our hidden, I guess, 4th member, since we have since Evan is our hidden 3rd member.
All the men behind the scenes, or people.
That's right. It takes an army.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that like you've always stuck with Evan, because like I don't think it'd be so different to hear an Entheos album without his bass tone. Like 'cause
Yeah.
his bass tone is so different, and it stands out. You know that that's him playing.
I
Like,
know.
don't know.
I
It's
totally
wild.
agree with you. And you know what's interesting is, so Time Will Take Us All, the album we were just talking about, we had a different bass player track the entire record, and he's a very, very good bass player, and people, I don't want to say who it is just because, but it was amazing. Don't get me wrong. But it just wasn't the same as having Evan on a record, and
He's so percussive.
yeah, he's so percussive in his style. Like, he and Naveen, they've played together for like over 20 years, okay, I want to say, yeah, it's over 20 years. And Naveen produced his 2nd solo record, and they match as musicians so well that it's very hard to like not have that. And when we replaced the original bass player's tracks with Evan's tracks, Evan's playing is so unique that I think there were like 2 sections that even sounded similar to what the other bass player had done. So, yeah, to round that all up, yes, I agree with you. We do sound different without Evan's bass. Like, I've heard it, and it's just not the same. And just, you know, Evan is literally one of the best metal bass players, just bass players in general, to ever let live. And I feel comfortable saying it. Like, I've seen
I would
the
agree
man.
with you.
Yeah, I've seen the man play so many times. I've seen his solo project, I saw like 30 times. He's so goddamn good. And just as a friend as well, it's like, I want Evan in the band. He's like a big brother to me. There are so many things that like Evan, you know, I guess stoic is kind of the right word for him, but when he says something, he means it. And it's like, he's said so many things to me in my life and in my friendship with him, that I've taken to heart, that I still remember to this day, and that I like really, really genuinely take seriously. And if Evan tells me that my vocals sound really good, then I'm like, damn, my vocals must actually sound really good, because he would never ever say that to just fluff me up. You know, he wouldn't say shit. He wouldn't say shit. So like, and beyond that, you know, it's hard for us to replace Evan, man. And we both constantly push to have him come back on tour with us. And originally, the deal, what we agreed on with each other, we were all like, okay, Evan's gonna leave until his daughter's grown enough for him to go back on tour. And we're like, dude, all right, we'll be here. We'll help we'll get the band bigger so it's worth your while when you come back. And Naveen and I have done that, you know, like I said, we take the things we agree on, and we were like, all right, this is all of our last band. We're not quitting this band because they had like gone through a thing, with Animosity. I think they both felt that Animosity was starting to get hype and starting to be a headlining band, and then they dissolved because the members couldn't keep it together. So, and they had each been through so many bands that they're like, all right, this is the one we're taking to the end. So, my hope is that we can actually make that happen together, because Naveen and I are absolutely, taking that to heart and taking this to the end. So,
Absolutely. Don't stop. You guys are killing it.
oh
I
yeah.
also just want to say, an Animosity reunion would be fucking killer. I
That would
love all of their stuff. Black Market Activities is coming back. Guy would love that shit. That'd be crazy.
Hell
So,
yeah. I think
yeah.
they've kind of talked about it, but they never can agree with each other on it. And another reason Animosity or Entheos started is because Naveen asked Leo, the vocalist of Animosity, to do a reunion, and Leo was like, I'm not doing that. I don't resonate with that anymore. You guys should get Chaney on vocals. And I would never ever do that. I'm not like, Animosity has nothing to do with me, So then we kind of got Entheos going. But it seems like each of them kind of have times when they think it'd be cool to reunite, and others don't agree with them at that time. That's how it kind of seems to go. But yeah, who knows? You never know what the future holds.
Well, I did want to say one thing. Yeah, so an end to everything. I don't know. I'm not as familiar with all of the newer Entheo stuff. I've been following all up until Dark Future. I haven't listened to as much as Time Will Take Us All, but your singing on the newest EP was so good. It was very unexpected, and it was angelic as fuck. So,
Thank you.
props.
Way more of it on. Right now, we're working on a full length, so there's way
Let's
more of it on
go.
that. And to me, what we're writing right now is like the best. I think it's cliche, but it's the most Chaney that I've ever been able to be, because I do like some technical metal. Like, I'm not against it, but more so I like songwriting, and I find that in like super technical metal, the songwriting is not always there. Sometimes it's abandoned for like sport. Do you know what I mean? For like the
Yeah.
competitive aspect, where we're
It,
all
it
trying.
doesn't have to be fast and brutal for it to be technical. It could be
Right.
groovy, and that's really what I was enjoying about what you guys had going on in this new EP. Veen was really grooving hard on that track, and yeah,
Yeah, which is what we love. We love like riff based
Yeah,
bands.
the
So
riffs were awesome on the new one.
hell yeah,
I
thank you.
loved it.
Yeah, Naveen's an amazing guitar player, and because he's a drummer as well, it's like that shit goes together very well. But yeah, so we're kind of like going further in that direction, and I feel like we're really honing in on our thing. Like I said, we've had to like find out who we are with people watching, and
Right.
it's an interesting thing to go through. But I think it's like, because we've always been kind of like a more we're a unique band, and I think that's enabled us to like really hone in on our thing and find what we're all about. And I'm just excited that now we've been a band for 10 years. I can't believe it.
congratulations. I wanted to,
Yeah,
if I
congrats.
didn't touch on that earlier, yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
congratulations.
It's hard to keep a band together for 10 years. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
we're really stoked, and we're stoked that like people still believe in us, and that we have a sick label behind us, and our managers are amazing. I just everyone, our booking agent, like everyone's amazing. And it's exciting to see people into it. And yeah, I'm stoked that there was a time in my life where I was going to quit doing it, but now I can't imagine myself not doing it.
Hmm.
Right.
And it feels good to like be able to live out my childhood fantasy.
Right.
You guys keep
That's
doing it
cool.
bigger and bigger every time. Yeah,
Oh,
so.
thanks, dude.
Oh, one thing I saw that was really cool, voice acting. Like, I saw that you did the stuff for Dead by Daylight, and I thought that was really cool. Like, I had no idea about that, and I've even played that game, and so, like, that was really neat, like, to read about, I guess, what was your kind of experience doing that, or, like, I guess, how did that all come about?
Yeah, so that came about because this guy named Sebastian started a company and he was like recruiting metal vocalists to do voices in games, and it was called the Monster Factory, so it was supposed to be monster voices. So I didn't know what I was auditioning for because you have to sign an NDA. Working on video games is way more like strict. They take
Super
themselves
secretive.
seriously. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, like in metal, most tours that are announced, like I heard about that like 5 months ago, you know. But
True
in
stuff.
video games, you're not hearing about shit. You don't know
Yeah.
anything that's going on. So I had to sign an NDA, and I tried out, or auditioned, I guess is the word. So I auditioned, and I knew I got a part, and it was me and three other vocalists. So Sebastian like had us all in a FaceTime meeting or whatever, like this Zoom, and he was like, "Okay, you guys are going to be doing voices for the new Dead by Daylight Resident Evil," and gave gave us all our roles, and mine was Jill Valentine. And I don't play video games. I don't know
Right.
anything about that world, so like I had no idea who Jill Valentine was. But everyone seemed really excited, like all of the other people were going off about it. So I looked it up and then found out after that Jill Valentine is a really legendary character in the
Yeah.
Resident Evil
Yeah.
universe. So, but yeah, so I got the part and went and tracked it, and it's different than tracking vocals because you have to be super quiet and like not wear a necklace and it, yeah, so I'm in the game. I still haven't heard myself in the game, and it came out probably like 2 or 3 years ago. But
Yeah.
people do tell me that it's cool. So, you
Yeah.
know,
It's pretty cool. It's like
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. The game itself is pretty neat. Like
yeah. Maybe I should play it.
yeah, it's like you're like a group of people and you have to run away from like somebody playing as like a serial killer from like movies or like, famous like Texas Chainsaw and different stuff like that. It's
Right.
pretty wild.
Yeah. All the voice acting I had to do was like breathe, like going, or like or like acting like I'm being choked, or the death rattle, and it's all fucking like gory,
That's wild.
horrific
That's
shit.
so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really cool. It was an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Because I had at least one more for you on my end. Do you have a favorite vocal feature that you've had over the years? I know you've done a few. Any bands that you recall that you just enjoyed that feature that you did?
Um, I am gonna say my, f- I don't, I actually kind of like them all, which I know this is very, of course she's gonna say that, but getting to do a vocal feature in with any band or with any musician, like every one that I take on sounds way different than the other one. My favorite is actually a full song that I've done, which was with Anoop Sastry, and it's a song called This World. And like it was really the first time that on recording I started utilizing pitched screaming. There's a shitload of pitched screaming in that song, and Naveen and I feel like that song, as well as a few other things, were kind of like the catalyst for taking Entheos in the direction that we have. Uh, but like I said, like every single guest vocal part that I do is exciting because my band doesn't sound like any of that stuff, and none of the guest vocal parts sound like each other. So it's all like an exercise in doing vocals. It all expands my palette and it all makes me a better vocalist.
That's a really cool answer, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. I
Thanks.
think my favorite, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name right now, but you did it with He Films the Clouds, and a local friend of ours, Jordan Price, was in that band at the time, and that one's really cool.
I remember that one. Yeah, that one was really good. I did one with Abnormality that was really sick. I don't know, there are a lot, and I can't honestly even sometimes remember the name of all the bands until someone says them. But yeah, there have been a lot of sick ones. Honestly, I don't really take on ones that I don't like. I'll turn them down. I do have some discretion with the stuff that I take on. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. The last question I had was just mainly like about like writing approach because I know you do like it's very personable and stuff. What's your approach to writing? I guess like how you get in that mindset, and do you sit down and listen to the tracks, or do you write out like lyrics before and just have like and you're kind of writing stuff to a track, or how's your go to it? I guess.
Yeah, so I do both of those things. I write a lot. Like I have even still to this day, I've been writing like poetry and lyrics since I was, I don't know, 10. And my parents like saved everything that I ever wrote because I just kept all of the notebooks. It's like an obsession. And I have them all in a chest that my dad built outside. So I write poetry and stuff all the time. I write it in like notes on my laptop, and I have notebooks still. I write everywhere. Uh, but I don't like fully flesh out a concept or an idea until I hear music, because generally I'll listen through a track and like words will come to me. Not every word, but certain parts.
Cadences and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's like the hook. Like the hook
Mhm.
will come to me immediately, the chorus. But also I'll go into the stuff that I've written and use some of that fragmented stuff to add or to just read as I'm listening to stuff. But I'm kind of just pulling it all. I pull it all from personal experiences, like a lot of Time Will Take Us All. I got in like a really, really bad scooter accident, like an e-scooter accident in the middle of tracking instrumentals for Time Will Take Us All, and that really dictated a lot of that album. That's what it was about. Dark Future, I'm sure a lot of people from Des Moines may remember Curtis Gearhart, who was
Rest in
a
peace.
friend of mine.
Mhm.
Yeah, who he died right before Dark Future, and I remember like still I was on tour with the Dillinger Escape Plan. It was their last tour. And I was in LA, like living it up. I was on tour with a band that I loved, like just, stoked. And I saw a bunch of people start posting that Curtis had died. And I got on the phone with Dustin and like, oh my God, I just remember us both crying for like, it was, he was a dear friend and just like a staple. He would
Huge advocate of the scene.
yeah, every show that had played since I was like 19 or 18 years old, Curtis had been at, and he was throwing down for, and he just supported the fuck out of all of his friends. Yeah, so we, right after that tour, were writing Dark Future. So of course I wrote, I was talking a lot about death and losing Curtis, and yeah, so it's weirdly enough, like death has lined up or accidents have lined up. So I'm knocking on wood right now that no one that I love is gonna die
Right.
right in the middle of me tracking this new album. But an end to everything, I lost another friend uh, to something different. But I draw from personal experience. That's the only way that I can really write. That's the only way I can connect to lyrics. I don't writing about science and aliens and whatever the fuck has never really been my thing. I draw a lot from like philosophy and word and like the language of philosophy, but I write about personal things all the time. So lyrics, I mean, they come to me at any time. Sometimes I have severe fucking writer's block, but songs kind of like they begin to write themselves if you let them. In some ways it might be like new agey, but in some ways you are a vessel if you just let yourself be. And it's not like I can explain where it comes from, but it's just like it works itself out in some way.
Yep.
So I try not to like limit myself to like I do it this way. I'm that because sometimes sometimes a melody comes to me, or just I know a melody and a phrase, but I don't have the exact amount of syllables, so I have to wait for that. It's just I let songs at this point do what they're going to do. And even if that means that I piss off the people around me, namely Naveen and Mark, because I'm not actually going to be ready to record for 3 more days. Luck,
Right.
luckily they know how to work with me and allow me to be myself in that way.
It's all
Uh,
about the process.
yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to work with people who were like, all right, we got to work from 8 to 8 today and we have to get the vocals done in 4 days. Like that's not my style. I write lyrics as I
As
just
you
let them
go.
come to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Like, saying like what you're talking about it being personal. Like, because I've seen you guys in Des Moines play live a couple times now. I think 2 or 3 times actually, and just seeing you perform, like, I don't know, it's intense to watch, but like you can tell like how it's, I don't know, like what you're talking about. Some guy talking about aliens or science. He's just up there like, but you can tell like this means something to you, and it's not just like you're not just yelling or screaming about random things. Like it's important to you and personal, like, and I think that's cool and it shows in your music a lot.
Thank you. That means a lot. I'm glad it translates that way because it's not intentional at all, but it's like, I can't help but feel connected to the stuff I'm saying.
Well, we're definitely excited for more stuff from you guys. You guys are gearing up to go on your tour in the UK with Born of Osiris and the Voynich Code, right?
Yeah, and ingested actually. It's gonna be.
That would
We
be
leave
awesome.
we leave in like 2 weeks, and then I'll come home and finish vocals, and we're announcing a really sick tour. Our first. I've been telling everyone, so I honestly don't give a fuck. I'm not saying who the opening bands are, but it's our first ever headlining tour, and I'm really stoked. And it is. I made absolute sure that our booking agent booked a date in Des Moines, so it is
Hell
coming
yeah.
to Des Moines. Yeah, and I'm really stoked.
Well, we'll come out and see you. That'll be cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we're getting about to the end of our time. Cheney, you got any plugs? Anything you want to let us know before we're done?
Nah, just keep rocking, dude. Keep supporting the scene. It's amazing to me. I haven't lived in Iowa for like 14, almost 15 years, but I have always been a supporter and like have always enjoyed watching the Iowa scene, and I'm so glad that it's still thriving. That people who I've known since way back in the day, Justin, just like who you guys just did a podcast
Mm-hmm.
with him, which I listened to last night. It was amazing. And just like people who are still keeping the fucking scene in Des Moines going, it's very near and dear to my heart. And we have had some amazing bands come out of there, and like it makes me so happy to see it thriving, and that every time I come back and there's a show, it's like people are there, and it's a lot of familiar faces who are still involved. So yeah, just keep it going because it's amazing.
There's definitely been a resurgence, and we definitely love our scene. So, yeah, again, Cheney, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. It's been a great time. And again, it's been just noise.